Once again, the All-Star returns are back, and like usual, there is outrage on social media. People seem to be upset that guys like Austin Reeves, Derrick Rose, and Kevin Looney are getting a lot of votes over guys that are having phenomenal breakout years like Sabonis. And we see this time and time again. Every year we see guys like Alex Caruso or Austin Reeves or Kevin Looney or Zaza Pachulia who are not really all-star players per se, but have a very, very big fan base and get very high on the fan voting. And teams like the Golden State Warriors have used this to their advantage, utilizing their very large fan base to get their players all-star selections, which has only furthered the current issue that we currently have. The issue is that the All-Star game has turned into a popularity contest. No longer is it who are the best players, it's more so who has the biggest fan base in the NBA. For example, Luka Doncic is having an MVP season and has clearly been the best player in the Western Conference all year, but LeBron James still remains as the top vote getter. Thanks to people like me who vote for LeBron 2 times a day on 2 different accounts, as you can tell by the jersey and the... Yeah.
I'm a super fan.
But despite LeBron having a very large fan base, other players similar to LeBron also get these All-Star votes, not just because of their fan base, but also because of their pedigree. It's almost like fans don't just vote on how good of a season you're having, it's more so how good of a career have you had. Players like Derrick Rose will get votes every single year because of what he did in Chicago years ago. This is what we've seen guys like Kobe Bryant in 2014, despite only playing 6 games before the All-Star break, was named an NBA All-Star starter. He didn't get this off the year he was having because, shoot, he only played 6 games. He got this off name and career accomplishments alone. It's not just the personal fan bases that these guys have built up. Not every player is LeBron James who has fans like me who will fall in from team to team. A lot of times, it just matters the team that you play on. Playing like a big market team like the Warriors or the Lakers almost guarantees that you will get fan votes. For instance, Golden State Warriors forward Andrew Wiggins was named an All-Star starter in 2022 despite not having a big fan base. But we will touch on that a little bit more later. Another issue is that fans and coaches look at All-Star voting the same way they look at MVP voting. They love to base their votes off who's having the best season on the best team, not who's having the best season regardless. Which would make sense if top teams like the Boston Celtics should have an All-Star because that's what makes that team successful. But it leaves stars out that play on these lower teams without the rewards of being an All-Star. Now, being named an NBA All-Star is a great honor that every NBA player is very appreciative of. Much like the Oscars awards actors for great performances or the Grammys award musicians for amazing albums, an NBA All-Star Game appearance is a sign of appreciation from the fans, the media, and more importantly, their peers. Now for the fans, All-Star voting matters so much because it's kind of bragging rights against your friends. And it's also used in a lot of them very, very heated legacy arguments. But for players, it goes deeper than just a great honor. A lot of these players have incentives that if they make an All-Star game, they will get more money. In particular, Kevin Durant has a $1.1 million bonus on top of his $40.9 million that he will earn this year if he is voted an All-Star starter. And yes, I understand $1 billion to a guy who's earning $40 million this year is not that significant, but it just shows you how important it might be to a player to make that All-Star team. And with how flawed the system is today, you can see a lot of players missing out the money that they were looking forward to. Now, we have determined that the current system is flawed and broken. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a popularity contest where the players that play on the bigger market teams will always get the votes. This year, the Warriors have all their starting 5 players in the top 10 in fan voting, despite Kevin Looney only averaging 6 points and 8 rebounds, Draymond Green only averaging 7 points and 7 rebounds, and Klay Thompson still getting back in rhythm from his injury. Now, they are the starters for the defending champs at least, but what is the fans' excuse for having 7th, not 6th man, 7th man Austin Reeves on a non-playoff team Los Angeles Lakers in the top 10 of fan voting? There is no reason at all, and guys like Reeves, not to his fault, take votes away from these smaller market players that need the votes. Now, playing and being a fan of a small market team is hard enough. Let's take, for example, the Sacramento Kings. For a franchise that has not seen the playoffs since 2006, the Kings are having an historic year by their standards. They're currently one of the best teams in the West and have one of the league's best offenses behind their 2 stars De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, who are both having career years. Now, Fox has never made an All-Star game, and even though he does deserve it, the West is kind of stacked on guards. You have Curry, Booker, Shai, Gilgeous, Alexander, Luka. It makes sense why he has not made it. So we're going to ignore him for right now, and we're going to focus on Sabonis. Sabonis has been a two-time All-Star when he used to play in Indiana in the Eastern Conference. But now being in Sacramento, he's struggling to just crack the top 10 in fan voting. In a year where he's arguably a top 5 big in the league, it should be a no-brainer that he gets an All-Star selection and possibly an All-Star starter. We all know LeBron James and Nikola Jokic are lots for starters in the West, but that leaves one more spot for the front court position. But surely Anthony Davis would be a lock, but he's been hurt this year and has probably missed too many games. The next option would be Zion Williamson, who is also having a phenomenal year. But just like Davis, he's missed a lot of time this year. So naturally it would make sense that Sabonis would fill this role. But he's not even on the list in the first 2 returns. And I'm not just talking about the fan voting results. You could argue it's not even the fan's fault that a guy like Sabonis is not getting votes. Let's just take a look at the NBA website, and if you go to vote for Sabonis to be an All-Star, well, you might have a hard time finding him. Watch as YouTuber Katie Beecham goes to vote for Sabonis.
And you're just putting together your voting, you're not going to see Domantas Sabonis for some time. You got to really go down. You see De'Aaron Fox, who also should be getting a lot of votes, but you got to go down for some time. Even if I go filter and say Western Conference front court, he's on the 3rd row behind some people that you're used to voting for. Shout out.
And it gets worse if you think about the majority of the votes probably come from a mobile device. You have to legitimately scroll if you want to find Sabonis' name. And you cannot blame a casual fan or a fan that only watches his or her favorite team for not seeing Sabonis' name. The NBA is purposely putting their bigger names in the front page of these votes, and especially in a year like this where you have to fill out your whole ballot, they're going to get more votes than a guy like Sabonis. Now let's backtrack real quick. I mentioned briefly that Davis and Williamson would probably be favorites to be the starters in the front court if they didn't miss a lot of time. But that's actually not true. Both are expected to be healthy before the game and will likely play in it. But more importantly, if they were injured or not, it really wouldn't matter. There is no rule that states that a player has to play a certain amount of games to become an All-Star. It's usually just common knowledge. If a guy misses a lot of games, you usually just don't vote him in to be an All-Star starter. For instance, Kawhi Leonard, who if is healthy would be a lock for an NBA starter every single year, but finds himself in the 10th spot due to his absence for most of the season. But that's not the case if your name is big enough. You can become an All-Star starter if you only play in 6 games. Which was the case in 2014 with Kobe Bryant. After freshman left Timberwolves in December, was voted an All-Star starter by the fans. Now, no one is arguing that Kobe Bryant, if healthy, does not deserve to be an All-Star starter. But any player who only plays 6 games should not be allowed to participate in the All-Star game altogether. It's simply not fair to those players who are having breakout seasons and play the majority of the game. Another great example of fan votes just not being an accurate representation of the best players in the league that year. This just further highlights the fact that fan voting is broken. Which makes it worse is that teams take advantage of this broken system. Which brings us to the title of our video. It's the Warriors' fault. The first time we saw the Warriors seem to manipulate the system was back in 2017 when center Zaza Pachulia was nearly voted in as an All-Star starter. He had gotten a large push from social media influencers and the Soviet Republic of Georgia where he is from. This just showed the Warriors the power of social media influencers and gaining All-Star votes for their players. It was super easy, just tweet a player's name and hashtag NBA All-Star and you would place a vote. And if you're not much of a tweeter, you could simply retweet a tweet from somebody else and boom, you place a vote. Meaning people with big followings could simply tweet out LeBron James hashtag NBA All-Star and could get thousands of votes in minutes. Unfortunately, this is not working anymore, but while you're there, you can still drop me a retweet and a follow. But I think you see where I'm going with this. Well, the Warriors sure did, and their social media team figured out a way to leverage Twitter in a big way. The NBA has these special days where a single vote is worth double or triple. Meaning if you get 100 retweets, then that is 200 or maybe 300 votes. So the Warriors social media team decided that a double day would be the perfect day to strike. Using the team's global ambassador Bam Bam, which is a K-pop star, and for context of this story, K-pop fans are ridiculous for a lack of better words. Just Google BTS. The Warriors would have Bam Bam post a tweet that would read this: "It's the best time to begin 2022. He is one of the best two-way players. Wiggs deserves to be an NBA All-Star. Vote Andrew Wiggins into the 2022 NBA All-Star game, and I can't wait to meet you all very soon." At the time, Bam Bam had 9.6 million followers on Twitter and mustered 37,000 retweets, which would mean an upwards to 74,000 votes. It would also become the #1 thing trending in Bam Bam's hometown of Thailand. It's just how much influence these K-pop people have, it's honestly insane. This will propel Andrew Wiggins in becoming an NBA All-Star for the first time in his career. A decision that left a lot of fans confused, including me. In fact, I did a whole video over this at the time it came out, so go check that out. And with more and more outrage every year happening around the fan vote, you might just ask, why not just eliminate fan vote altogether? But like most things in this world that we want to get rid of because we don't understand, it's usually because there's a lot of money involved. You have to remember that the NBA is a business first and foremost. They have to and need to make money. The whole All-Star Weekend brings in a shitload of money for the league. And the fan voting is just another revenue stream for the NBA. When they first started fan voting in 1975, the NBA would hand out these ballots at games that would have a big sponsor's name on it. And that has continued until today. If you go on right now to go vote for LeBron James, as you should, you will see a big thing that says NBA All-Star Voting presented by AT&T. How much do you think they are making off that simple line alone? Who knows? But what about the years before when we could vote on Twitter? Surely there was no sponsor under my tweet. Correct. But don't think for 1 minute that they weren't using your Twitter handles, your phone numbers, and your emails that they gathered from a simple tweet or a simple text message and sending those to sponsors that want to monetize NBA fans, that want to advertise to us fans. Fan voting was never about getting the players that the fans wanted to see on the court. Yes, it's a nice touch, but best believe if the NBA could not find a sponsor for a fan voting, they would never do it. It's just that will probably never happen anytime soon. Fan voting is not going away. But the NBA has tried their best at least to improve fan voting as years have gone on. Only back in the very first NBA All-Star Game, the league had a panel of scriptwriters and broadcasters who would select each competition starting 5 and the 3 bench players. And much like today, the coaches were responsible for filling out the rest of the bench. And then in 1975, we saw our first version of the fan voting, where fans would select the starters from each conference. And at this time, the fans would choose 2 guards, 2 forwards, and 1 center. This will continue until 2013, when the league was transitioning into more of a small ball era. The NBA would eliminate the center position, making fans vote for 2 backcourt and 3 frontcourt players. And at the time, fan voting accounted for 100% of NBA All-Star starters, meaning that the media and players would have no say whatsoever on who is an All-Star starter. But it's almost like the NBA knew something was wrong about this system because, as I mentioned earlier, Zaza Pachulia was voted in as a starter in 2017, which was also the exact same year that they decided to change the rules to reduce fan voting down to 50%. And the rest of the voting would be split between the players and the media, getting both 25%. And that's where we are today. Fans still have the biggest impact on determining who becomes a starter or not, but with the addition of media and player voting, the league hopes that it will become more fair. But the only problem is that players actually might be worse for voting for All-Star starters than us fans. Simply put, players do not care about All-Star voting, which is weird because they are aware of how being an All-Star can look for their careers and their pockets. Reason number 1, and the most obvious reason, is that players can vote for themselves. No matter if you're a star or haven't seen the court all year, you can place a ballot of your name for an All-Star starter. Since player voting became a thing in 2017, we've seen 283 players get named to become an All-Star starter vote at least once. In 2018, that number was 249. In 2019, it was 289. In 2022, it went up to 292. And then in 2021, it's up again to 310. And last year, we saw players like Kawhi Leonard receive 2 votes despite missing most of the year with injury. Ben Simmons received 2 votes despite refusing to play for the Philadelphia 76ers. And guys like John Wall, TJ Warren, and Michael Carter-Williams all receiving votes despite not touching the court all year. But obviously, players have a bias towards themselves and their peers, voting for players just because they are boys. But it's not also just voting for the players that they like, they also have a bias towards players they don't like. Now, it's no secret that when Kevin Durant joined the Golden State Warriors back in 2016, that players were not happy with this move. And this was represented in the All-Star voting in 2017, when Klay Thompson would finish 8th in player voting after finishing 4th in fan and media voting. Draymond Green would finish 5th in fan voting and finish 9th in player voting. But let's give the players the benefit of the doubt. They play against these guys every day. Maybe they just didn't think they were the same guys that we see every night dropping 30 and 40. Maybe they just thought there were some bumps. But more likely, these players decided not to vote for them because they were on the Golden State Warriors. So before you go kill us fans for voting for players we like LeBron, please go keep the same energy you have with the players who don't vote for people because they simply don't like them. But now let's address the biggest elephant in the room. Why does this matter in the first place? At the end of the day, fans, media, and players, all we're voting for is the all-star starters. We're not even voting for the full team, just the 5 guys that start the game. And honestly, we are really only voting for 2 or 3 guys every year. Because players like LeBron, Curry, KD, Jokic, and Luka are locks no matter what happens. Which leaves only 4 spots that really matter when it comes to voting. So the voting doesn't matter. Well, it does, because the All-Star game at the end of the day is the fans' game. Ever since the first All-Star game in 1951, it's been a smash hit for the NBA. Fans love the game and the whole weekend, and casual fans get to learn some new names and other fans get to see their favorites. With that being said, fan voting is crucial. Us fans, we want to vote for the players that are going to be in the game. Every year, I personally look forward to voting. I love seeing players that I enjoy make the game. For instance, this year, I've submitted multiple ballots with Shai Alexander on it because I think he deserves it, and honestly, I'm just a big fan of his game. And it's special to see guys that you root for finally get the mainstream recognition that they deserve. Like I said earlier, it's like the Grammys. When you see an artist you love finally win that Grammy, you get that sense of pride that you were listening to them before they got that. And it's the same way us NBA fans feel. And the game itself, well, it's awesome. It's the best professional all-star game out there. For me personally, I always remember when LeBron went against Kobe 1-on-1 in Toronto and Kobe's last all-star game. Or even the previous one when I finally got to see LeBron team up with Stephen Curry, and Stephen Curry went absolutely crazy with these circus three-pointers. There are so many moments that have came from these games that for fans, we hope it never goes away. So imagine if they took the fan voting away altogether, seeing players that we might be unfamiliar with or guys we simply do not care about. For us fans, this game is just a big popularity contest, and that's okay. But we still do want to see the best players just like everyone else does. So how do we fix the voting issue without losing the fun for the fans? The first and most glaring issue is that the NBA needs to throw away the front and backcourt voting. The league is positionless now. You see guys like Nikola Jokic bring the ball up the court and basically run the point guard. Essentially, he's the point and center for the Denver Nuggets every night. Make it so the 5 best players, no matter what position, can be voted for. The league already got rid of position voting, now it's time to get rid of front and back court. Fix this and we've already improved voting times 10. The next option would be to devalue the fan vote and to give the players and media the same equal footing. This option is not my favorite because personally it just takes away the power it comes as a fan when it comes to voting. I believe the best option is to completely remove the positions and also get rid of all the conferences. The league already revamped the All-Star game in 2018 when they introduced the draft. The 2 top vote getters of each conference become captains, and they draft on national television their teams. And when they draft, it doesn't matter what conference or what position they draft. It would eliminate issues like we have this year where Jayson Tatum might not be a starter in Eastern Conference because of how strong the backcourt is. If you get rid of both positions and conferences, it will let the best 10 players in the league get a start. And we will make it so that players, media, and more importantly, the fans are happy. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters because it's the fans' game. So let me know in the comments who you think deserves to be a first-time All-Star this year. And if you want Jayson Tatum to be an All-Star starter, make sure you go watch the documentary I did over him right now.